Today I am having a conversation with Sharmil and Elliott Ruth, and I'm going to let her say her name because I get tongue-tied. I trip over certain types of words that have lots of syllables. So, Sharmil.
And I have a lot of names also. Yeah, my name is Sharmil Elliott Reclusado, and I'm a nutritional aesthetics practitioner. And my childhood nickname is Sharmy. So
Sharmil.
that might be easier.
Okay. And I'm gonna come back to Sharmil and let her kind of introduce herself more. But today we want to talk about collagen because it's all over the place. I get so many questions about collagen and are there oils that will drill down and make the collagen, grow and all kinds of questions about this part of our skin, part of our whole bodies actually, that's so important. And so we're going to talk about it today because I've got a fair handle on oils that are good for the skin, oils that are good for, the whole ecosystem. I'm starting to think about the skin. And Sharmil has quite a solid background in internal support of the body and the skin, specifically focused on the skin. So tell us about like your training, because that's so interesting.
Yeah. I actually started out as a formulator, so I'm a skincare formulator as well.
Right.
My product line is called Forest and Fern, and from there I decided that I wanted to focus on the internal as well. So I am a certified holistic health practitioner focusing on nutritional aesthetics. So basically, I take the skin as a barometer for what's going on internally. And vice versa, what's going on internally can impact like what's happening on the skin, both in terms of physically, physiologically, and emotionally, mentally, how we feel about ourselves and our confidence and how we show up in the world. So that's the short version.
Okay, so and that's totally true. I mean, the skin, I mean, you can approach it from inside and outside and give it really quite a lot of what it needs. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm quite fascinated by the fact that the lipid compounds we put on our skin from plants and from tallow, even it's gotten popular. I'm kind of more of a plant oil person, but the butters and all, it's a lot of the same fatty acids that are in those natural compounds are also nature uses the same compounds to make our skin and to make us waterproof, right? So we don't absorb too much, and we have this good waterproof kind of protection against the outer world. Um, so do you want to talk about collagen? You probably, I mean, I
It's
where
such a huge subject.
it's
So
a
yeah,
huge,
where to begin? Where to begin?
oh yeah, okay.
So collagen, like we were talking a little bit off camera before, is
Yeah,
it's a very large protein, very large molecule, and creates so much of what our bodies created of. Like it's a foundational piece for our skin, and like we'll just talk about the skin because that's
yeah,
largely what we're here to focus on.
right.
But our collagen is the structure. It's what kind of holds everything together. And
Yeah.
without that, things kind of start to fall apart. And we see signs of aging, lines and wrinkles and sagging, things that we don't like. And elastin is a close cousin to that. And a lot of the things that we do to support collagen also support elastin. Elastin is the ability for things to remain taut and the spring back. So if you think of
Oh,
elastic, it is the same
elastin, right.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. You can just tell by it how they've named it, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's wonderful when they name things logically like that. But there are a lot of things that impact collagen and elastin and impact the health and our body's natural ability to keep producing it. in a full way, where we also have a lot of things that influence us that begin to tear it down, and yeah, just take away our ability to produce it healthfully, and then also degrade what we have currently.
Let's talk a bit about what tears it down so that we don't do that. And then we can think, can talk a bit more about what they know. And I think it's an ever evolving study.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it's constant. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a really hot topic too, because everybody wants to know, how do we stay, like, it goes back thousands and thousands of years. How do we stay young forever? How do we live forever? How do we age gracefully? My perspective on that is empowered aging. How do we age with empowerment rather than, gracefully? But that's a different topic. So the things that impact our collagen are internal, intrinsic, and external, extrinsic. So external things are pollution, are environmental toxins, things that come from outside of our physical bodies and have an impact on us. And the way they impact us is through inflammation and oxidation and things like that. And with inflammation, we think of it in terms of the body as inflammaging or skinflammation.
I like that. A couple of weeks ago, we had kind of a long kind of in place get together. And when you mentioned inflammaging, that's kind of it. It's really kind of what we want to control, allow beneficial inflammation, which is so necessary. And that's the point I try to make in my courses, is that the inflammation is valuable. We need it, but not prolonged. Not
exactly.
Not
exactly. Yeah, I was talking with a client of mine one time, and she was asking me about microneedling, which is and this may be going off on a little bit of a tangent. So
no, well, it's yeah, I think I know what you're going to talk about. Yeah, I think it's because you're talking about how the body responds.
Yeah. So microneedling, without going into great detail about what it is, it's a topical, it's a treatment. It's a thing that you do to your skin that induces a short-term inflammatory response. And there are a lot of things that do this out in the world, but short version is an induced short-term inflammatory response that triggers a healing mechanism to begin, and then the natural process is that then that inflammation is quelled and you have rejuvenated tissue, rejuvenated skin, rejuvenated cells. So it's encouraging rejuvenation, but if that inflammation continues on, then it starts to have the opposite effect. It starts to degrade the tissues.
Break down.
Break down.
And so if we lose our collagen that way, then it's diminished the structure of our.
Yeah. And something I wanted to note too is that we have to have it to live. Like, if we were completely without collagen, we wouldn't be held up. Like, we're never going to be completely without collagen. I don't think it's physiologically possible. It's a relative
diminishment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Yeah. That's true. It is. I think I read it's 30% of the proteins of the whole body, so it's significant. And then in the skin, it has that. It's in that middle dermal layer that it gives.
So we're never going to be completely without. And so I think the concern of like, oh, I'm losing all my collagen. It's like, well, you're not losing all of it. You're just losing the parts of it in the places that feel like you want more. Which I can appreciate. I can appreciate that.
You're right. Right. Okay.
Yes. When talking about inflammation, so we were talking about, there's the external extrinsic inflammation, the things that we're exposed to in our daily lives out in the world. But that can also include the things that we put on our skin. So skincare can, if it is, how do I say this delicately and not like open up a can of worms here?
Right. Yes.
The phthalates, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
They can have
chemicals that are.
Yeah, they can have an inflammatory impact on our bodies.
Okay.
They can have, and some things even enter into the territory of toxic impact. So
yeah,
that then triggers an internal inflammatory response, or things that are going on inside our bodies that are being influenced from the outside. And so once that fire begins to rage in our systems, these important proteins start breaking down, and attention goes to where the biggest fire is burning, right? So our skin, while it's important to as a barrier to keep us held together, to keep us, water resistant and permeable when we need to be, like all of this stuff is important. But if that's further down on the priority list of demands, then we're going to lose it there, and it's going to be prioritized somewhere else to reduce that inflammation. The attention, the blood circulation, the things that need to happen to heal are going to go elsewhere.
To where it's more vital.
Where it's more vital.
Keeping all of us together. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
And if we live in, if our lifestyle, our nutrition, our mindset, our relationships, the way we show up in the world, and the way I talk about it is basically what we eat, what we think, and what we do impacts, and stress impacts our internal inflammatory condition. And if we're walking around with these raging fires inside of us, our digestion's not going to work right, our brain's not going to work right, our energy, our sleep, our mood, it has all of these trickle down effects, and we start seeing things on our skin. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, well,
that's another decade.
Yeah.
But it's the wear and tear that each, kind of year and decade kind of.
And it can happen slowly, or it can happen quickly. So people who go through health crises will say, I look like I aged 5 years in 6 months. Because that's what's happening. It's like the body is putting its resources where it needs to be,
Which is heal. The healing our whole organism, not just keeping us.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So it's interesting that the skin is at the same time a somewhat lower priority for the whole body, but also it's one of the first things to show when there are internal issues.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's why one of the reasons I find the skin so fascinating is because, eczema, dermatitis, and psoriasis, all of that shows up pretty quickly externally.
Right.
To say, hey, look inside. There's a lot going on internally that needs attention.
Okay. So basically we want to treat it as well, the collagen as well, or our whole bodies, but maintaining our health so that the collagen isn't diminished, isn't broken down prematurely. And I love what you said about you're never going to be without collagen. It's just a matter of relative amounts in certain spots.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about inflammation and what to do to counteract that, there's all of the lifestyle things that I just quickly ran over. But then we're talking also about antioxidants. And antioxidants are so important, both topically and internally.
Okay.
And you can talk a little bit about that
from the perspective of oils. What I've finally they're linked, because excess oxidation will is damaging, thus you get inflammation to order to heal it. So that
Yeah.
was kind of an interesting kind of link. And the fact that so many of we're talking about the plant oils now, and well, any fats, the unsaponifiables, that healing fraction, they are almost all both antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. I mean, and I had to kind of break them into their major function just to kind of teach them. But that was kind of, it's all so linked together and our whole body health. So, yeah. So talk about what oxidation does to us. And
Oxidation. Okay.
I mean, in terms of the collagen in the skin. So, I mean, yes, because this is a huge, massive
Yeah,
subject.
it is. And
I mean,
it's gonna take multiple conversations to really go through all the pieces.
the first. This is collagen one.
Yeah. So oxidation, you know, so oxidation is breaking down of the oils, breaking down of proteins, things internally and externally, of course. That's where I'm just going to ad nauseum keep repeating that. But so oxidation requires is the fire. It is a fire. So it's one form of inflammation. And so antioxidants.
It's one form of inflammation. Okay.
Yeah. So antioxidants are coming in to quell that fire. So from you may be able to explain this better from a chemical perspective. If oxidation is coming in to rob the what is it
the electrons
process the electrons thank you
and I read a reference. This is a kind of a new reference. They call them loose electrons. And I kind of like that because I mean, okay, like electrons in water are not loose, right? Water, it needs to get super hot or super cold in order to change states. So some electrons are totally bound to their molecule, and others are less so, or they can be, impact can come in from the outside and cause them to cascade. I mean, it's that free radical cascade, this idea, the tumble of electrons from molecule to molecule is where a lot of the damage happens, I think. And I know there's ROS and all different.
Yeah, reactive oxygen species. Yep.
And I'm still getting that understood.
Yep. So, well, the basic, just keeping it simple and really accessible.
Thank you.
The idea is that so something is coming to rob an important piece, and that creates a fire in our systems. What we want to do with the antioxidants is it's coming in to replace something or protect something from being, robbed of what's needed. And when we look at antioxidants for internally, we're talking about foods that are antioxidant. Berries are really wonderful, high in antioxidants, and there are a lot of different ways you can get the nutrient benefits from berries, but it's maybe another conversation also.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can go on about skin for quite a long time.
Yeah. And so eating whole food diets, doesn't have to be plant-based, but getting plants into us and putting plants on us internally and externally is one way of doing that. So leafy greens aren't technically under the category of antioxidant, but they do a lot of things that support an antioxidant system. Leafy greens.
Oh, okay.
Like spinach, kale, lettuce, all that. All that good stuff. Okay. And then supporting an overall internal system, like digestive system, that's processing out toxins appropriately and removing the things that are no longer needed in our systems, because as soon as we breathe, as soon as we eat, we're creating reactive oxygen species. We're creating oxidation in our bodies, but it's a process of life, and we're not going to get away from it.
We need oxygen.
We need oxygen.
That's pretty basic. Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't think about it in terms of like each breath in, each bite of food, like that's actually doing something in an oxidative process. But but they're also it's also necessary. We have to eat, we have to breathe. And then what we eat and how we breathe, what we're breathing, are we breathing clean air? Are we breathing in exhaust? Like how is that happening? Right. So what are we doing to support minimizing that oxidative process? And then what are we doing to support expelling the byproducts of that oxidative process through digestive health, good liver support, liver, gallbladder, kidney support, and our skin. So our skin is one of our biggest detox organs.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about reactive oxygen species and things that impact us on an oxidative and toxicity level, what we're trying to do is get all of that out of our systems, and it can come out in our skin. Well, not can, does. That's one of our detoxification.
So those are our skin problems, challenges, all the things that happen.
It can be. If there's too much happening at once, or if there's any kind of stagnation or blockage and things aren't moving appropriately, then there can be concentrations that create problems. There's a whole host of stuff that happens through the detoxification, just normal, natural living life detoxification. I'm not even talking about anything, crazy.
Right. So how do we protect collagen from internally? I have people who want something external that will get down there and make the collagen proliferate, to grow.
Yeah.
And basically, almost every raw material we use in skincare, the compounds are too large to penetrate much past the stratum corneum, the outer layers. So nothing is quite drilling down in order to affect the collagen.
Yeah. So what we want to do is protect and promote what we have. And we can do that through our diet, nutrition, lifestyle. And some of those ways are to make sure that we have enough antioxidants, make sure we have enough protein that we're consuming, because protein, that is the foundational building block for collagen. We need that.
They're both protein.
Collagen and elastin both. Yes, they are both proteins. Okay. And so we need the intake of these nutrients in order for our body to naturally produce what we're trying to get it to produce and protect, i.e. collagen, elastin. So when we were chatting about this the other day, I was saying it's like a light bulb. If you have a lamp, but there's no light bulb on it, you can turn the switch, and if there's no light bulb, you're still not going to get light. So in the same way here, like, you have to have the foundational pieces internally to support it. Otherwise, you can do all kinds of things all day long that are intended to produce supple skin, but if you don't have the foundational pieces, it's not actually going to turn anything on. It's not going to do much, if any, good. There are some caveats to that. Yeah. So you have to support. You have to support externally. You can't build if you don't have the building blocks. You can't build a building.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
If you don't have a light bulb, you can't turn the lamp on. So
And proteins, absolutely, because elastin is protein, but I would think fats too.
mhm. Yep,
I,
you need good
I
fats.
read a reference because I've been reading lots of different studies just to kind of, what is this stuff and see what I could glean. One said that too much lack of fat as we age can be a problem.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure if that was collagen focused or skin focused, but
I think it's just skin focused. But it can create a sallowness, kind of a lack of hydration and things like that. If we wanted to go down the rabbit hole of the low fat ideology, which I don't know that we do.
yeah. But that's been part of our culture for so long. And
It has.
maybe this emphasis on collagen is because, it's caused problems. It's not a complete approach.
Exactly. And so I think the idea is anytime we are processing something and breaking it into its
Right.
its parts, we're not taking in the fullness of we're not taking it in a way that our body can actually recognize it and know what to do with it. So the more we take it apart, so when we take a lot of the fat in non-fat dairy products, when we remove that out and process it in that way, it becomes something else. It becomes something that our bodies don't actually have an ability to identify. What's left? Yeah.
Left over without its fat component is no longer recognizable.
It's somewhat recognizable, but it's not fully recognizable. So and that's where we end up going like, oh, well, the body goes, what do I do with this thing? I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to store it in fat tissue. And it just becomes,
But it's not, right.
It becomes more fat. And the same thing happens with other ultra processed foods. They're broken down so much that the body isn't able to really recognize and process it appropriately and fully. It's still coming out in some ways slowly, but it's not giving us the full nutrient profile that we need. It's not giving us, the information. So food is information. Yeah, it's almost a code. The food goes in and provides a code that then the body recognizes and says, this is what I do with this. I know how to utilize this. And so if the more we put things into our bodies that aren't recognizable, the less we have to have our cells functioning fully the way we want them to be. So when people are like, well, I'm losing collagen, I'm losing elastin, I'm getting lines, I'm getting wrinkles, I'm getting all of these things. It's like, take a deeper look at what's happening internally. Are you supporting your body with all of the things that are necessary to have the collagen and the elastin cells on a cellular level be healthy and thrive in the way that they're meant to function?
Okay, right. That's a really good point. I've always been kind of a health food nut. I mean, back in the day, kind of the crazy family member. But it has served me well, I mean, I have no aches and pains or anything at age, and everything's working relatively well. And so this idea that, and I've always liked the idea of the whole food, whole, that's white flour, white sugar, white, all that white stuff, which was really promoted back in the day. Because I used to, I had a period when a lot younger, when I collected old cookbooks. And when they talked about the purity for your family of this new white product, this new white sugar and white flour, and even then I was saying, I really like these cookbooks, but that seems a bit maybe we don't want to. Anyway, we've run the gamut now because now
Yeah.
everything is whole, and
Yeah.
we even
Yep.
get
Yep.
brown
Yep.
napkins. So
Yep. Absolutely. But when you're talking about sugar, like that's a really good point too, because excess sugar or refined sugars in particular create a process in our bodies called glycation. And glycation directly damages collagen and elastin. So
um,
it,
so
it
a reduced sugar diet is
yep. And we're talking, refined sugars, processed sugars, things like that. Fruits are still great. They have wonderful phytonutrients in them. So I'm not promoting a no fruit,
I
no
know
fruit
I had one
approach.
diet where carrots were too sweet. It's like, oh,
Well,
like,
and that depends
yeah.
so much on what's happening in your gut microbiome too. That will determine, like, are you having glucose spikes? How is your insulin operating? So if we're having these spikes in our blood sugar and drops in our blood sugar, and our pancreas is going crazy with like, oh, I'm producing insulin, wait, but now I'm not producing insulin, and even metabolic resistance or metabolic flexibility impacts the skin and the collagen production, because an unstable or unstable insulin response, an unstable glucose roller coaster is going to create inflammation. That it's a direct pathway to inflammation. So like all of these things come together, and the end result is always inflammation. Inflammation. And what does inflammation do? It breaks things apart.
Because it's a fire.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's
Right.
an internal
Okay.
raging
Yeah.
fire. And part of the problem with our standard American diet is it has so many of us walking around in a chronic state of inflammation. And going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, a short burst of inflammation to create a healing response is healthy. We need it. It's how we survive. But the chronic state is when things just go out of balance and out of whack. And that's when we start looking, 5 years older in a matter of 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, well,
But
that makes sense. I mean,
yeah, but we don't see it. We get so used to feeling, walking around feeling like Dr. Mark Hyver talks about the FLS diet. I forget exactly what his little acronym in it, but it's like you feel like hell. And that's what it is. Like,
that's not
oh, just
good.
walking around, you feel like hell.
That's not good.
Everything hurts. Like you're in a bad mood. You don't sleep well. You're not, everything is just terrible. It's because of this chronic
Yeah.
inflammation in our system. So relieve the inflammation, support with nutrients, support with the foundational pieces to create healthy collagen and elastin. And that's really the first part, the first piece. And then go for the topicals, go for it. Like use
All
those
of them.
oils, yeah.
Right.
And that's going to support, because we do have the extrinsic factors that come in and influence our skin health from the outside.
Right. And because our skin is made up of so many different types of fats, all the fatty acids that are in all the plant oils and animal fats, and well, cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, somebody, I'm going to leave that for a minute, but cholesterol, is cholesterol used in skincare?
Yeah, it's a component in ceramides, or ceramides, however you pronounce it. So cholesterol is in the skin
Is
too.
it used as a topical? Because somebody asked me about that. What about using cholesterol? And I've never do you go to a supply house and say, give me your what size cholesterol? I mean, I've never seen it
Yeah.
sold that way. I mean, it would be in, I should think, tallow and animal fats and of course, the plants don't have cholesterol. They have plant sterols, which are similar, the plant version of our and animals' cholesterol. So,
Yeah, so in the formulation world, cholesterol exists as part of a ceramide complex that you would get from a supplier.
if you bought a
Supply house.
ceramide,
Yeah,
ceramide
yeah.
complex, then the cholesterol is part of that. Okay.
Yeah. So as far as cholesterol specifically on its own and how you would get it in a non specific formula ingredient, I'm not
Okay.
real sure how that would come about, but I do know that it is a usual component in a ceramide complex.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the ceramides, that's a whole subject.
That's the whole thing.
I'm trying to drill down into that one too. Because, yeah, but it's fascinating because at one point somebody asked me about ceramides, and I actually went to Power of the Seed, right, which I wrote, but 10 years before, and looked it up, and it's no, the ceramides are what is the glue that holds all those outer extra skin cells together. It's just the outer waterproof layer. And so this idea that you could somehow make it and use it as a raw material has been kind of a thing. I have a lot of questions about not, how they do it and what aspects, because the skin needs to make its own ceramides, right? It's going to. And all of that, of course, protects the underlying collagen. It's all bound together.
Yep. So we were talking about external or internal antioxidants, but there are great external antioxidants as well.
Right, which is all in the unsaponifiable fraction. The healing fraction is kind of the more easier way to think about it. And of course, all the antioxidants, the carotenoids, the tocopherols, vitamin E, and all of that, squalene, the plant sterols. Plant sterols are mainly anti-inflammatory compounds.
Yep.
And so applying all of these not highly refined oils, but processed oils for formulating, but still with a full complement of their antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, saponifiable compounds, then they can do quite a bit to calm the outside, the excess of the skin,
Yep.
And some of the fatty acids like GLA is no for calming inflammation. So
absolutely. Yeah. It really takes both. It takes both.
Eternal and
when we're talking about the skin and what the skin's needs are, and that's largely because our skin is an external outward facing organ. But you have to address it in the environment in which it exists. So our skin faces the world, so we need to protect it from the things.
Right. From the world, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can't go a day without putting some oil, and it's really, it's not. I don't have a recipe. It's whatever news come across the door and it made it to the bathroom. Trying them all, and I do know that some people don't do well with like high oleic acid oils, and other people don't do well with high linoleic acid oils. So that's everybody has the oil that is good and their skin responds to, and that could have something to do with how their internal and all of that. I mean, if there are studies that show if the skin is deficient in a fatty acid that it wants, that it needs, it can take it up externally. So it's
like a plant. I love this analogy. So when you water a plant at the soil, at the roots, it absorbs the water. But oftentimes it absorbs through the leaves as well, and we don't really think about it that much. So we're like, oh, we just water from the roots, at the roots, and that's like, the internal. But we also have the option of being able to take things in, nutrients that we need topically as well. We're just little plant.
Huh?
We're just little plant. Or big plants, rather.
Big plants with too much going on sometimes. I know. I want to come back as a plant.
Yeah. But some other things that we could talk about at another time are, how red light therapy impacts the skin, and it impacts
you mentioned that for collagen.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because that was kind of new to me.
Sure. So red light therapy is an incredible technology that is harnessing what is available in nature and what actually comes from nature, which is the sun. But it's using particular wavelengths, and in the red is in the 630s, 650s. I'm not getting those numbers exactly right, but 6 somethings. And then the near infrared is in the 8 somethings. And there's a lot of research that has been done and that continues to be done on the particular specific wavelengths and what they do and what they're best for. But within the red and the near infrared, they have a powerful ability to reduce inflammation. So, hey, right, like what we've been talking about, first and foremost, reduce inflammation.
That's interesting that it's the red would reduce. You think it would cause more, but we don't know yet.
So what it does do, what we do know that it does do is it creates that short inflammatory stimulus.
So it is kind of
a little bit, but not in a dangerous way. You're not cooking yourself under red light.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, it's just light. It's not heat with light, burning.
Well, the near infrared can be a little bit warming, but it's not hot. And it's not hot to touch the light panel. Anyway, this is a very, very big topic. I'm just going to touch on the surface. Surface of it.
I like the idea. And
Yeah. So what's so amazing about it is one of the very first things that it does is it creates this healing response to reduce inflammation. So it stimulates a little bit, healing response, reduce inflammation. But what it actually does on a cellular level within the mitochondria is it increases the production of ATP, which is the power source of the individual cells. So it's stimulating them to give them the energy that they need to function in their best capacity.
Well, that's perfect.
Amazing.
Well, that there's your whole ecosystem. You make it
exactly
as optimal as possible, so that the body, all the parts of the skin, and can do what it needs to do.
Yep. And that's my theory on how and why it is collagen supporting, collagen producing. Not producing. I don't think anybody's ever done any scientific studies showing like that it makes collagen, but it does. It
stimulates the body's own process.
Yeah. It's very supportive.
You need the homeopathic version of collagen stimulation.
Right.
That's a whole other
little microdose. Yeah, we could talk about homeopathy.
Yeah, we know, man.
But yeah, and in the same way, in the same things we've been talking about, the results that you have are going to depend on what you're doing internally to support your body's production. So red light therapy will have some effect, but it will only have the effect to the degree
if you have the underlying building blocks.
The light bulb, the lamp.
I love that.
So,
Okay.
but it's really incredible. So if I'm going to stop just with the skin, that's pretty much what we have about the skin, but it does so many other things. Like the research on it is vast and continuing. It reduces pain. Inflammation can
Oh, it
produce
is.
pain, so reduces pain. It There are amazing studies being done on Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injuries, particularly for the near infrared, because that particular wavelength can penetrate bone and go into the brain tissue, which is
And
incredible.
help with brain
Incredible.
issues.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It helps with mood support, sleep support, eye health, um, muscle recovery after workouts. Gosh, it's just the list goes on and on. It's not a panacea. Like it can't do everything for everyone. And like,
Right.
it's not a panacea, but it does so much because of how it supports on a cellular level. Uh, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
All right. Okay. I know there's just, and then you have to start wondering about all the other colors. What do they do? I
Yeah.
mean, no.
Blue is antibacterial. It's good for acne
They've already
situations.
kind of,
And it's also a little bit anti-inflammatory. And then like there's green and there's yellow, and they do
right.
certain other things for particular types of anti-aging, quote unquote, the way they call it. I don't like that term. It's not my preferred term. But I find that with the red and the near infrared, you get those same benefits as well. And I think that's why you're seeing in the commercially available products now that it's really focused so heavily on the red and near infrared because they do such an amazing job. The yellow, the green, those kinds of things. They're almost well, one, they haven't been researched as much, and two, what the research they have shows that red and near infrared is just as good.
Yeah, just as good. Okay. All right.
So
Well,
more research always being done, which is exciting.
I know, and you get these little tidbits, and the brain starts to go, "What about?" And trying to put out, make it all, bring the pieces together, just like no, funny.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I think that was collagen 1. We already said.
Yeah. Did we miss any pieces on collagen 1?
More studies and kind of, but so basically to summarize, and you need the antioxidants to calm excessive inflammation in order so that you don't harm your whole internal body. But speaking of collagen, and then the right nutrients, the building blocks that enable the body to form the collagen it does need, and
Yep.
and then keeping your health from having a
Yeah.
healing crisis that's going to tear down. But the body really can oftentimes rebuild itself if it has what it needs. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I live my life by that. I mean, people would argue with me, but
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole approach from naturopathic medicine, right? Our bodies have the ability to heal. We are inherently able to heal.
It doesn't want to be decrepit.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I mean, so we have to give it what it needs to build itself back to what homeostasis, equilibrium. Yeah.
And the really exciting thing is that we have that within our means. We can do that.
We can do that. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And maybe at another time we can talk about like the mental emotional, how stress impacts inflammation and collagen degradation, all that stuff. Like there's so many other like different avenues.
Right. Okay. Okay. So so you have a product line. And we can put information below this video when we put it out and put it up. And but you also do a lot of consulting for all of helping individuals, groups to
Yep. So right now it's individuals. I'm working on creating some in-person workshops that are going to be coming up, which I'm very excited about. So
Yeah.
in group context. And so what I do as a nutritional aesthetics practitioner, and that's just a very big long name that just means I'm a health coach focused on skin from a holistic perspective.
Okay. Well, that's very, yeah, that's quite clear. Okay.
Yeah, just break it right down. So I help people figure out nutritionally, lifestyle wise, stress wise, gut health, all of the underlying internal things, both physiologically and mentally and emotionally, that are impacting their health on a broad level, but specifically for skin health.
Okay.
And it can be any number of different things. And I love how when we gain a new lease, when we gain a new lease on our skin, I'll just say, how we show up differently in the world. And we lead with, we lead with confidence, and we're not like hiding behind makeup or not wanting to go to the friends get together because you're just like, I don't want to see anybody, or I don't want anyone to see me. And like there's a real emotional component that plays into that. And then also going the other direction, kind of more like what we've been talking about today, is how what's happening externally on the skin is a very clear indication of what's going on internally. Are there,
Even
is there,
emotion,
even emotionally, absolutely, absolutely. And it can be directly related to organ health, organ situations, or inflammation, or gut dysbiosis and things like that. But there's a lot to look into, and it's very exciting to me. I geek out on it, and I absolutely love it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Because I mean, we've known each other for a long time, and you've been gaining this kind of focus skills. It's quite wonderful.
Over the many years. It's been great.
Yeah. Okay. So below this video will be more information on Sharmil and what she does and contacting her. And just be aware collagen 2 will come along, or some other of skin that I'll be discussing with her. So thanks for being here today. And yeah.
And I do offer 15-minute connection call if anybody is curious and wants to, give me kind of the high level picture of what's going on with them. I can say, hey, this is something I can help you with, or I think maybe you should go that direction instead, and kind of work to see what might be beneficial for you. So I'm available for that as well.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, because just kind of get a little toe in the water to get started.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so happy to have been here. Thank you.